All right, you're live on Lunch Conversations of Randy and Teddy. It is Wednesday, March 2nd. Thank you for everybody who showed up. We want to acknowledge our host. The Elder Law Firm out of Greensboro, North Carolina is our sponsor of today's show. Elder Law Firm can help you keep your commitments to your loved ones. If you want to help your family and friends with estate or elder care planning, look up elderlawfirm.com or call them at 336-396-4551. Let's see, Randy, I'm going to get better at this one of these days. So
okay.
There's the graphic for the Elder Law Firm that I was supposed to have up first. So, but we'll keep moving, buddy. Go ahead. And how about you do us a favor and introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, Randy Wooden with Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina, based out of Winston-Salem, and I run our professional center. If you're watching, or maybe you know other people that might be in a job search right now, I don't care what they tell you about. You read in the paper about, we're dying for employees. Yeah, I get that. And especially at the hourly level, or especially at the customer facing retail, restaurant, hotels, that kind of stuff. But at the professional level, it's still very challenging. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people that are wondering, okay, why isn't it happening as quickly as I'd like? So our services are free. I'm happy to help you. I've got clients across the country, a lot of them here in the Triad area. So reach out. We're free. We work by appointment, and happy to help you with your job search. So there's that. And back by popular demand. Oh, Teddy, you going to do the housekeeping?
Yeah, as I'm trying to figure out, why can't Mike sit still? He jumps from the beach, and now he's in a, he's
going to address Congress here, it looks like, or something. What's going on?
So, hey, but for those who
in the gallery,
hey, I'd love to know who is on here for the very first time. As I tell you who I am, I'm Teddy Burriss. I own a company called Burriss Consulting. We teach LinkedIn and Google Workplace as business tools. Love to help business professionals, nonprofits who are using Google Workplace, and salespeople, and even job seekers who want to learn how to use those tools to move them forward. But every Wednesday, Randy and I get together and we bring a special guest to the conversation. And Randy, why don't you start off and introduce our audience to our special guest?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And again, backed by popular demand. And by the way, the world's record holder globally, the world's record holder for most appearances on Lunch with Randy and Teddy, Mike Fenley, joins us once again. Mike is representative for Senator Richard Burr here in North Carolina. And politics being what they are, it's a contact sport. And we're not necessarily here to talk politics and what the feds are doing to help with COVID or other things. We can touch on a little bit of that, but we're here to talk about something I think we can all agree on, and that is we don't like scammers, and we don't want to be taken advantage of. We're going to learn about what the feds are doing in that area. And Teddy, you've got your finger up in the air. Did I miss something?
No, I want to make sure I don't forget the housekeeping, buddy.
Okay. Well,
yeah, so anybody have any question for Mike or any question for me, then drop it in chat and I'll bring it up at the appropriate time for either Mike, Randy, or myself to address.
Yeah.
But please use the chat, not the Q&A, because I've discovered it's way easier for me to stay on top of everything. So Randy, back to you, buddy.
Yeah, sure. And so Mike joins us again. Mike and we had another cohort, Lisa Lamb with NC Works. They have been in 3 times talking about COVID and what the government's doing at the state and federal level to address that for business and for workers and such. And while COVID is still here, it's kind of not, certainly with Ukraine and everything else going on, it's not at the top of the news. But Mike's got a special presentation that you've given to seniors, to veterans, and to other groups, and that's scams. Nobody likes scammers. So we're going to talk about that in some detail. But first, let me throw it to you, Mike. I mean, you're an old radio guy, too. You do a little bit more. Do a little better job of introducing yourself and what you do for the senator.
Well, Thank you, Teddy, and Randy for having me on today. I'm glad to hold a world record. It may be actually a universal record, a universe record.
I think so.
Yeah, it probably is. My job for Senator Burr, I cover 28 counties in Northwest North Carolina and Piedmont Central part of the state. And my job is to travel around and do the things that he would do if he had the time to do it. And so I deal a lot with local governments and local nonprofits and quasi-government agencies and lots of individuals in their dealings with the federal government, whether it's about a piece of legislation that they're interested in, or maybe it's about a personal matter with a federal agency. We do a lot of that kind of work. But one of the things that I hear a lot as I travel around is the issue of scams, and it's become almost pandemic, and maybe it is pandemic in its nature, and it's something that is not easy to deal with. And as we were talking earlier in the green room, it's easy to make a law that prohibits all of those phone calls that we get on our cell phones. Oh, that's right. We made that law back in the 1990s.
Right.
Made the robocall illegal. A robocall is a call generated to your phone by a computer and delivering a recorded message. And 99.9% of the scam calls you get are robocalls, and they are illegal for businesses to contact you through that method unless you have a business relationship with them.
Yeah.
And if you're a customer, you're going to opt in to being communicated with that way by the businesses that you're
Sure.
dealing with, your bank and places like that.
Yeah. So, Mike, we're going to cover a host of topics. I just want to invite people, if you've got a question for Mike, a comment, on the ball, and we'll absolutely read what you had to say. We'll try to work it in there. But and we are getting a little on and off on the audio on that, but I'm not sure there's a great solution, Mike. So we'll go with what we have. Some of the other topics we're going to get into today, just kind of tee this up a little bit. We're going to talk about the Federal Trade Commission and their role in all of this. Also, if you're a job hunter, and again, I deal with job hunters every day, and wondering about these scammed work from home or jobs that are posted, and they require you to submit personal information in order to be considered, and just a variety of things dealing with employment scams. We're going to talk about seasonal scams too. Is that hey, I'm going to come out and trim your trees, and I don't know, maybe that kind of stuff. We'll get into that. That could be part of it. If I had trees to trim, I'd give you the business, but I don't have them. Also, other different types of scams you maybe hadn't thought of before. I'll tell you one, Mike, and we'll just kind of whet the appetite here for other folks maybe to think about some scams that they might want to ask about. And that's those QR codes that you see where you hold your phone up and scan it. That's maybe not the latest and greatest, but it's one of the newer ones that I've heard of. And we want to talk about that. But also, not just how to avoid them, but how to report them. How to report them. So those are some of the topics that we want to cover. Mike, I've already asked you the why question 3 or 4 other times. I know you dig what you do. I see you on the road all the time now that COVID is loosened up. But this is not so much being, let's say, the mouthpiece, if you will, or the listening device for the senator. This is something you've identified as I say, we need to get word out about this stuff.
Well, I think one of the things, you mentioned the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. Most scams distribute themselves via advertising, and the Federal Trade Commission is the agency charged with enforcing truth in advertising. The challenge for reporting scams is you can report them all day long, but law enforcement doesn't have the resources to track down the Nigerian prince and all of the others, that are trying to reach you and to get your information. And so, I personally feel that one of the best defenses is information. So as to warn individuals about the different types of scams, things to look for, and that is the best prevention of being taken by a scam, is to be aware.
Yeah, the being informed. So I'm going to ask you, Mike, to just like a teacher would do in class, and that is to sit still, keep your head still. Those microphones are lousy on laptops for the most part, and I think that's what you're using. So, but you got to get you one of these things, man. Teddy, hold up. I got the nice.
Mike, I'll send you
know,
one, man.
Put that into budget. Put that into budget, Mike. We'll get you fixed up. So a lot of scams out there. Phones, golly, you name it. Emails. I thought everybody knew about that Nigerian prince, though. That's kind of old school? Aren't there some new and more sophisticated ones out there? What are some things that you're seeing with maybe the FTC can deal with, or what are some of the cool new ones that we need to be on our toes for?
Well, you mentioned the QR code, and that's
this
device, and this device has been around since the 90s to transmit information. A QR code can contain 350 words. So you can distribute a lot of information with a QR code. And they were used for years in distribution centers, tracking merchandise, tracking orders, and that sort of stuff, tracking equipment. You'll see QR codes like a barcode. It's just a more expansive version of a barcode. And COVID comes along, and restaurants that are staying open or trying to deal through drive-through came up with the idea of, let's use the QR code so that you can scan the menu onto your phone rather than touching a menu that somebody else has touched that might carry the COVID disease. So restaurants did this, and a lot of other retail businesses. I see them in brewery tasting rooms and wineries and places like that. And basically the concept is you scan it with your phone, it links you to a website that contains the menu of the business you're trying to do business with, and you read the menu and place your order without ever having to touch the menu. The problem is that scammers are now developing their own codes, printing them on stickers, going into restaurants and putting their code on top of the restaurant's code. And when you scan it, you end up going to a malicious website that may ask you to download software. And I mean, you're looking for a restaurant menu. So, okay, you hit download. Next thing you know, there's a Trojan horse on your phone that's stealing all of your personal information that's stored in your telephone. And if you don't think there's a lot of personal information in your telephone these days, then you got another thought coming. The challenge is to make sure it's a real code. So the first thing you want to do is something they don't want you to do, and that's touch it to see, is it an original printed code, or is it a sticker? And if it's a sticker, chances are I would just immediately say to a waiter, can I see a hard menu? I'll take my chances I got hand sanitizer with me, and I'll take my chances on getting COVID through looking at your real menu. These things are showing up all over the retail world. And if you want information about a product, scan the code. If you want a menu, scan the code. I mean, it's information about a business, scan the code. Do you want the loyalty card transferred to your phone instead of having to show your card every time? Scan the code. And that's where the scammers are coming in, is scanning a scam into your phone and creating problems. There's a phrase that, and I think this is probably, this is germane to the entire conversation today.
Yeah.
There's a phrase that we all know that's credited to Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, build a better mousetrap, and the world will be the path to your door.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, there's a version of that I think applies in this case, and that is build a better mousetrap, and someone will build a better mouse.
Pretty
and so
much.
if we, every time we figure out a scam, a different variation of it comes along.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to keep that in mind with technology. It's so easy to change the scam instantly. And so you have to look for some common warning signs, I think, with scams. And one is when you scan a QR code, it'll pop up a web address on your phone, and you should look carefully at that. And if it contains the website of the business you're visiting, then chances are you're safe.
Yep.
But if it contains some gobbledygook, then you're probably not safe.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Teddy, because he's our crack research staff when I'm away from my desk. We looked up what QR stands for, and do we have a fabulous prize for any of our guests who can first tell us what
we can come up with
QR
a
stands
prize,
for?
So yeah,
I don't know that we do.
Knows off the top of your head, which means you got to respond in a few seconds.
Don't look it up. No, don't look it up.
Google it.
What does what does QR stand for? And it does stand for something, just like URL stands for something.
And while we're waiting for that, for the person who can do it quickly, and the fact that we've gone this long means they're Googling it. And
don't leave our show. Don't leave our show to go on Google.
Yeah. Let me throw out and ask Mike this, because one of our audience members said scammers prey on lazy people. Now, I don't agree to that. Mike, what's your perspective on who are scammers preying on?
Well, I think scammers are preying on everybody. Yeah. Lazy people, sure. I saw the question pop up about why scan a QR code? Why not just do your homework? Well, nobody does their homework anymore. We rely on a 30-second TV ad to decide who to vote for president. I mean, come on. Yeah. Instead of doing, and for school board and for mayor or whatever position it is, we want to take the easy way out. So the scammers take advantage of that. Sure, that's an issue. But I think anybody can be susceptible to a scam, particularly things like the QR codes and malicious software, links in an email. You get an email from somebody that looks like your bank. Mm-hmm. It's got the bank's logo and it's got all that stuff on it, and it looks so official. And it says something like, we need you to click on this link to update your information. Well, when you click on that link, you end up with the malicious site that collects your information. And the clue to preventing that scam from becoming a victim of that is to read it carefully. Look for misspelling. Look for odd grammar. Look for things that you say, gee, do you think some rocket scientist at the bank would really say that? Yeah. And then look at the return address of the person sending it to you. If the return address is at gmail.com, chances are real good it's not from your bank.
Or how about AOL?
Yeah, AOL. Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of that. It's interesting. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of that. And unlike anybody else, more so with emails, and I'm getting them now with texts. But if you've recently made a payment to a company, for example, it'll say, thank you for your payment. You are entered into our monthly contest, that kind of thing. And so I think appealing to greed and appealing to that kind of thing, not necessarily getting something for nothing or something too good to be true, but something that sounds legit. I can't think off the top of my head, but I've had several in the last few weeks that seem very, very innocuous. Sure. I'm sorry. That's a long word.
Yeah.
I just had to throw that in there.
Somebody just left us to look that up.
Go look that one up. But they look so benign and so simple. And what harm can it be? A $5 a credit on my account or something like that. And it's not even asking me for, my name and everything, whatever. I won't go there, but this QR thing. So do you see any light at the end of the tunnel? Are I don't know, companies becoming smarter about how they present the QR code, or helping consumers to do a better job of deciphering if it's real or not?
This is a fairly new scam.
Yeah.
And so now companies are scrambling to try to figure out how to prevent their code from being pirated or their code from being covered up. So I'm sure that there are a lot of folks in corporate offices today that are talking about this code. The North Carolina Attorney General just released a warning about it this morning, and I read about it on Thursday or Friday last week, and so it's a brand new scam, And once we tackle this one, there'll be another one. Somebody will come up with something else. And again, I mean, we can pass all the laws of the land. I mean, like I said, robocalls are illegal. It's illegal for a business to call you with an automated phone message. That's illegal, period. But they do it. They do it. And if you, I occasionally, you know, I'm driving sometimes an hour and a half, and I get a call, and just for entertainment purposes, I'll press one and talk to somebody. And usually these people are just clueless that they're involved in illegal activity from the very start. I'm talking about the call center people that you talk to.
Yeah.
I even got one from earlier this week from Card Services. Card Services, you know who Card Services are? It's a monster company that processes all the credit cards.
Yeah.
All the credit card transactions. And the guy I talked to insisted it was not an illegal call. And so I don't know. He probably wasn't from Card Services, which is another watch point to be able to identify, is this person legit? Is this phone call? One of the most common ones I get these days is from the Social Security Department. You ever heard of the Social Security Department?
They don't call you.
Well, they don't exist. It's the Social Security Administration.
Yeah.
That's right. So, and they're not going to call you to begin with, but unless you call them first. But you look out, that's a little clue. Social Security Department is a clue that this is a scam.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And you have to watch for stuff like that.
But Mike, what you're sharing with us right now is the words you just used. The words you just used are probably the most impactful thing that we can do to help ourselves combat what I call these idiots.
Yeah.
You have to pay attention.
Yes.
You have to look at it. And you know, and by the way, who do scammers prey on? A lot of times they prey on the elderly.
Yes.
I got a 90-year-old father-in-law who is smart as a whip, you know, a business executive all his life. He's engaged with lots of people, dealt with lots of things, but he is getting bamboozled by these scammers who appear to be real. And fortunately, he's starting to ask questions before he goes and responds to these idiots.
Hey, Teddy, we've got a great question that Dean threw out there with Ukraine going on right now and Russia and all that. You want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, Dean, good question. You know, how do we pay attention to who these fake nonprofits are, you know, as we're trying to help our community and our international communities? You know, what's a good way to pay attention to know which ones are fake and which ones are real? Mike,
donate your money to my nonprofit, Mike, because I'm going to help the dying people in Ukraine. How do you know? How do you separate the good from the bad with that?
You just don't do it. You just don't, unless you know the organization.
Yeah.
Unless you know something about the organization, don't respond to their plea. If you want to donate to a cause, then do some research. Here comes the lazy thing again. Do some research into the organization that you're going to donate to. And I wish there was a way that you could say, here are all the legitimate organizations. It'd be great if there was a list online that you could just Google. Tell me all the legitimate organizations that are raising money for veterans, Ukraine, blah, blah, you know, name the cause, homeless animals.
Yeah.
I mean, but the problem is the minute you come up with that solution, the scammer is going to come up with a different one that will override that. So you just have to, there's no replacement for doing your research. And again, now nonprofit can robocall you legally. The law that was passed in the 90s excluded nonprofits, and that's why you get lots of calls from the Police Benevolent Association.
You know what about
those are boiler rooms in the police the charity that they're representing gets less than 10% of the money that
Yeah.
they take in.
Yeah. So let's say I do want to donate to, let's say, the Red Cross or such. I think it's still kind of a mistake if I just Google, give me the Red Cross the main whatever. But because I'm going to get maybe some spoof, redcross.org, redcross.com. I may get the wrong website. But what if you could you look up, let's say, Red Cross Winston-Salem, and then you get a local phone number, or you'd get a local.
Sure.
How do you figure out when you're doing what I'll call a Google search to find the right legitimate, let's say, Red Cross? How do I know I've got the right legitimate Red Cross?
Yeah.
I would say again, it goes back to doing some homework. And yes, do a search for a specific phone number, call the number, and just go through a little conversation to make sure you're talking to the right people.
Yeah.
And if you're not satisfied after you've done that, then just don't give to it. Don't give it.
Is there any?
Red Cross has offices in all major cities, so we know in Winston-Salem you can go over right or almost across the street from Goodwill's.
Near Goodwill.
Quarters. Yeah.
Right.
There's Red Cross office over there. You can always drive over there and go in and say, "Hey, here's the check," and they'll get it to the right place. But that's hard. That requires effort.
It does.
Getting in the car and driving over there, or making the phone call, doing the research.
Yeah. So, hey, before we do our 12:30 break, I'll share another example of how people who want to help and can create a problem. And that is, one of the audience members shared, a URL to a site that she says she uses, but she spelled it wrong. And so the site doesn't work. Well,
right.
Scammers rely on that. They want you to spell Goodwill wrong. They want you to spell charities wrong, and they'll register those domains and set you up for a mistake. So be very careful when you share your email addresses, and web addresses to your audience, so that you don't, help someone else get into a problem. Yeah. So
I think that's good, valid advice.
Yeah. So
here's one thing to remember. Anybody can register domain name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
You pay the fee. You can register whitehouse.org or whitehouse.us or whitehouse. Whatever. If it's an official government website, it's going to end in .gov. No federal agency has websites that end in .com or anything other than .gov.
Is it the same in reverse, that nobody can get a .gov URL unless they are a government agency?
That's right.
So it's a mutually exclusive club you're dealing with here. Interesting. Yeah. And I think we've all fat fingered it at some time where we start typing in a website and we get it wrong. And the same thing with email addresses. I mean, our Goodwill email address is very difficult to say over the phone. GoodwillNWNC.org. It's just the letters kind of sound the same. And I can't tell you how many times I've had clients say, "Hey, man, I emailed you, but I didn't hear back from you," or whatever. Well, the email went through to someone else.
Right.
They're probably going, "What is this?" Or it got kicked back. But either way, make sure you're accurate. Teddy, we're about half past. We've got some more good questions to dive into, let's do the halfway break.
Hey, you're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy, and our special guest today is Mike Fenley. And we want to acknowledge the Elder Law Firm's support for the show. Who's important to you and how you plan to honor your responsibility to them? The Elder Law Firm wants to help you with the right estate planning and the right protection as you help those people move forward through life. So give the Elder Law Firm a phone call. Look them up on the internet at the Elder Law Firm. The number is 336-396-4551. And so let's. Randy, I got a question from Bill. Wants to know about employment scam sites. But before we go, I know that's queued up in the conversation, so I'll let you keep going or take it when you're ready.
Well, yeah, I kind of wanted to ask that. Is there software? Are there things on our computer that, the computer's spidey sense goes off and says, and I think I have seen some that said this is an unsecured website or something like that.
Right.
Is that, do people pay attention to that? I don't know. Do they?
I don't think people pay attention to it very much. I mean, I do on my official business computer, which runs through the Senate network. Boy, we have a very robust tool that tells you if you're going to a malicious site, it won't let you go there. So this software tool that's used, and a lot of businesses have that same sort of system built into their corporate networks that prevent you from going to malicious sites that are outside of the corporate network. But there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
There's just no guarantee that where you land on the web is legit and secure.
Yeah.
Listen, it takes very little skill to develop a very official looking website.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, there are software programs that you can develop a really good looking website that looks official. You can steal logos from federal agencies. You can steal pictures. You can do all kinds of stuff like that. And you can do it in an hour. I mean, in an hour, I could put a website up that looked like it was the most official and serious thing in the world. So the old caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. The onus is on us as individuals to make sure that we're dealing with legitimate people.
And I wonder too. Yeah,
it happens in job searches a lot. I know a lot of your folks are interested in job scams, and there are several really malicious ones going around.
I want to get to that in just a second, but I just had a quick thought. I'm going to go old school on you here for a minute. The U.S. mail. I mean, remember we used to get junk mail, and it was all these offers for this and that and the other. And I'm wondering, and maybe this has happened, I just haven't noticed it, but very often banks will say, well, we will never call you. We will never, whatever, we will send a letter to you. So I may get this official looking on nice letterhead that says, we have questions about your account. Call this phone number. And what they're giving is their scammer phone number.
Right.
And I think I'm talking, they didn't give me a website to click, so I'm safe, right? I'm safe. I didn't click anything. I just called a phone number, and a very official sounding person will gladly take my call. Is that still something going around? Or am I just making that up?
No, it goes around, and I don't think not so much via the Postal Service, because that's expensive.
Yeah.
Okay. Email's cheap. I can send 1 million emails for what it cost me to send one letter.
Yeah.
So scammers are they're criminals, and criminals are not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and they take the easy way out. They're lazy.
Got it. Hey, let's pivot then.
Towards rich. They're taking the easy way towards being rich by scamming you out of your money.
Yeah, isn't that nice of them? Yeah. Hey, let's pivot, because again, to your point, Mike, we have job hunters on here, and there are employment scams. We're going to pivot to talk about employment scams. Do you have a David Letterman top 10 list of, I don't know if you have that, but what are a couple things at the top of your head, the main things we need to understand? These are scams or possible scams, and how to detect them.
Yeah, there's several, and they all sort of use the same scam. It's called the fake check scam, where you get hired. Let's say the job is your job. You see this a lot online. You see it advertised a lot online about reshipping packages, and your job, and we're going to pay you X money a month to do this job, and all you have to do is we're going to send you merchandise. You're supposed to repackage it, destroy all the original packaging and any materials in the original packaging, and repack the merchandise and send it to this person.
Why would that even make? I don't know. Why would that even make sense? They're
going to pay you $3,000 a month to do it.
Yeah, but okay, I'm with you.
Okay. And a lot of the scams are there are two parts of that scam. One is the check. They're going to send you a check in advance. They'll say, we'll pay you your first month in advance. We're going to send you $3,000. That'll help cover your expenses of reshipping all this sort of stuff. And then, so they send you a check for $3,000. You take it down to your bank, deposit the check, go buy a bunch of supplies. Next thing you know, a package arrives at your door. You go through the process of reshipping that. And 2 weeks later, your bank calls and says, that check bounced. And they want the $3,000. But the person that sent you the check is unreachable because by the time you called it, they've changed the number. They've gone on to something else. So you're stuck with the check. And the same scam makes its way into purchasing items through things like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or any of the others where if you're, let's say you're selling an item through Marketplace and somebody calls you and they say, look, I live in New York and I'm gonna pay what you ask for the item and I'll pay you for shipping it to me. And so I'm gonna send you a check. When you get the check, you cash the check and ship the item to me. So you say, okay, you agree to the deal. They send you the check. The check is for double what you agreed on price-wise. So you contact the person via messenger. You say, hey, your check was the wrong amount. They say, oh, don't worry. Just cash that check. Send me the merchandise and a money order for the balance of the check. Same thing happens. You do that. 2 weeks later, the bank says, hey, the check bounced. We want the $300 or whatever amount it was. We want that money. And you're stuck. Not only you've lost your merchandise, you didn't get paid for it, and you're stuck for the full amount of the check and the money order.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that version of the scam permeates the work from home industry.
Yeah. Now,
because everybody wants to work from home. I'd love to make $3,000 reshipping packages, but you know what happens? The packages that come to you from the manufacturer, from the retail business, that's merchandise that's been purchased with a stolen credit card and shipped to you. And then it's your job to repackage it and ship it to someone else. But someone else is the scammer who used the fake credit card, and now he has the high-end merchandise. But there's no record of his involvement because he used a stolen credit card, a fake name, and the package was sent to you. So not only are you on the hook for the money that wasn't covered by the check they sent you, but you've just participated in fencing stolen merchandise.
Teddy, we're in the wrong business, man. We can make a potload of money doing this.
Yeah.
I should have been taking notes.
Short-lived. Now, here, let me tell you a story, Mike. I got one of those checks. I had a guy who wanted to buy some product from me, and he sent me that check. FedExed me the check. And actually FedExed me 5 checks because they were less than a certain amount of money, which put him below a federal crime, a state crime. So I got 5 checks from him. And then that later, I knew it was a scam the whole time. And I was just playing him to get the experience so I could talk about it. And then I went and I saw a buddy of mine who works for BB&T, now Truist Bank. And I told him about those checks. He looked me straight in the eye and he said, don't you dare bring those checks to any one of my branches.
Right.
Now, he was being very blunt because he said, Teddy, the moment you deposit them, you get ripped off. And now everybody in my organization who's involved in that branch is now going to have to spend hours and hours filing reports about it. And here's the problem. The BB&T, Truist, any big bank will not tackle those $2,000, $5,000 problems. Why? Because they're tackling the $50,000, $100,000 scams.
Yeah.
So
you end up getting on the hook for it. The bank gets on the hook for it, and the scammer gets away with the money. Yeah.
Wow.
And that works under. I mean, that whole concept of the check works in several at-work scams. It may be the reshipping. It may be the reselling merchandise. There are scams that relate to being nannies or caregivers personal assistant job scams. They all kind of work in the same area. Another one to watch for, and there are legitimate mystery shopper programs around, but they don't generally advertise themselves. They are people that are recruited by the industry itself to go shop. So the McDonald's mystery shopper program, McDonald's finds some people in the local community to go shop the local McDonald's and report on what's going on, and to make sure that the franchisee is following all the rules. But most mystery shopper programs, particularly ones you see advertised online or in emails that come into your email box, most of those are scams. And
what's in it for the scammer at that point? Are they going to pay you a check, a bogus check? You cash it and
that's right.
Never hear from them again, and you're out the money for the bank.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It's basically the fake check scheme.
I got it.
Another thing to look for in the area of work scams is job placement scams. And Randy, you certainly are aware of this. The services that are available through organizations like NC Works, or if you're from another state, your state at work organization or find work organization. We used to be called the unemployment agency, and in North Carolina it's now called NC Works. And you at Goodwill operate an NC Works Career Center, and it doesn't cost a dime. Okay, it doesn't cost the job seeker any money at all. So be wary of job services that want a fee from you. In most cases, even the professional headhunters are usually paid by the company looking for the employee, not by the person looking for the job. And so I'd be real leery of anybody that says, you can see this, you can apply for this job, but there's a $200 fee. Now, $200 doesn't sound like a ton of money, but when you multiply that scam by 10,000 people, now we're talking about real change, Yeah. And for a person who's out of work, $200 can make a big difference in whether you have lunch today.
Yeah. Along those lines, though, Mike, realistically, I mean, what I do is free, but for many years I did this on my own, and I would charge per hour, or if somebody wants to commit to a block of hours. But I was very clear that I'm not guaranteeing you a job. I'm much like an attorney or a fitness coach. Right. I offer pros and cons. I provide structure and ideas, but I don't guarantee you're going to win the case. I don't guarantee you're going to drop 50 pounds and look like Schwarzenegger. Yeah. It's essentially paying a consultant, just like life coaches and other kinds of coaches. So I think buyer beware is a good point. When somebody says, hey, you chunk down $2,000 and I'll guarantee you a job, I can give you horror stories. Yeah. Trust me, over the last I won't go into the number of years, Teddy, that I've been doing this work, that it just infuriates me, because those bad apples are creating potentially, we'll just say bad situations that cast a pall on a lot of other people who are well-intentioned and totally legit.
Really so let me answer Dean's question. Dean asked, how do you know if a pro resume writer is legit? How do you know if a bricklayer is legit and can do a good job? How do you know if an auto mechanic can do a good job? How do you know if a social media strategist can do a good job? Always ask for the name of someone that you've helped, so you can get a reference directly from that other human being. And if they're not willing to give you a reference, then I would be leery of doing work with them. You ask me for a reference, I'll give you a reference. So always ask for human being references before you do work with anybody, if you are unsure that they are legit.
Hey, Mike, another question on this, on the employment side of things, and I get this from some clients about asking about what I'll call personal information, whether it's social security number or whatever, that kind of a thing, as a pretense for continuing in the hiring process. We need your social security number to, I don't know, confirm that you're who you say you are, Mr. Candidate. And people, they're not going to do that.
It's illegal to use Social Security number as identification. Plain and simple.
True, but just like you can't do robocalls. So
what
Yeah.
you do, Randy, is you have to ask the question: why do you want my Social Security number? What do you plan to do with it? And how will you treat me if I refuse? And if you refuse, I mean, they do it at the doctor's office all the time. The doctor's office always wants your Social Security number. I don't give it to them. I say, are you going to not treat me if I don't give you the number? No, we just like to have it for identification. Well, it's against the law to use it for identification, so you're not getting it. So don't give your Social Security out. And what you have to decide is if the person says, well, I can't deal with you without your Social Security number, then I wouldn't deal with them in the first place.
Hey, Mike, I got to tell you an old war story from when I started. And Todd, you're a recruiter. I know you're on the call, and we may have some other recruiters on the call. I started back in the days of Smile and Dial and no internet, no email. And we just, the Harris Directory of Manufacturers and SIC codes and, just pounding out phone call after phone call. But we always would have to verify education. Somebody says, I have a master's degree, a 4-year degree. We would have to, before we would send them out on an interview, we would verify their education. Well, back in the day, the way to do that with these schools was to provide their Social Security number.
Right.
And people would readily, and we're talking early 90s here. I had to date myself, early to mid 90s. And candidates would just gladly hand over their Social Security number. And I would have that number. I even remember people would put it, I've seen it on people's resumes. But now it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But back then, and I remember even on our healthcare card for an employer, that was the identification number, our member number in the group in the insurance plan.
In the old day.
Yeah. In the old day, not now.
Yeah.
But I just say that just to see and point out how things have changed.
Right.
And how hopefully enough people are on top of things to not necessarily give that out willy-nilly all the time.
Yeah.
Well, and the same thing goes true, not just giving it to you via the telephone, but don't ever send your Social Security in email. Don't send a credit card number in email. If you can't give somebody a credit card number either over the phone or through a secure site, then you don't give them your number.
Yeah. Are there other scams? And I'll give you an example from an employment standpoint where maybe a company says, okay, set up your home office and you can work from home, but you have to provide the computer and you've got to provide all of this. Is that a scam? Are there other kinds of scams where the job really isn't real kind of a thing? I don't really I'm not driving at anything here. I'm just throwing it out. Are those kind of scammy?
Well, I wouldn't say scammy, but I'd say sleazy. If a company wanted you to work from home and won't provide you with the tools to do your job, then you probably don't want to work for them.
Yeah.
So I know some folks these days, I know, Randy, your background has been in radio and these days radio stations, with technology, you can do a radio show sitting in your own bedroom or wherever.
Right.
I know people who do news for radio stations in our market, in the Winston-Salem Greensboro market, that live at the beach. And they can do a live newscast from their home every day, just as easily as they can come to the studio. But in most cases, the radio station will provide them with the necessary equipment. Or
Mike,
you can play your own podcast.
Mike, be careful with what kind of information you throw out about what the employer should give, because now Randy's going to throw that back at me, dude.
Right. Yeah, it's cat's out of the bag now, man. You did that. Hey, we've got about 10 minutes left. Mike, we'll always ask you to summarize as we do at every show. We're not quite there yet, but I do want to touch on how to report. That was a big piece. Is okay, we understand now what's going on, all these different scams. We understand hopefully some thoughts here on how to avoid them. But then it's all right, fine. How do we get these SOBs? How do we go out about reporting them and what happens when we report them, if anything?
I wish I could say that if you reported it, that immediately they would be arrested, but it's not true. But your reporting of scams, I'll tell you there's a statistic. There was an article in the paper in Winston-Salem last week that said in North Carolina, $93 million was scammed from North Carolinians, and that there were 64,000 fraud reports in the state. Nationwide, the number is $5.8 billion and 2.8 billion reports. It's rampant. And I'll tell you that those numbers only reflect half.
Reported.
Yeah,
the
that's
reported
just reported. Right. I think what reporting does is helps share information with other people. So the Federal Trade Commission, which is ftc.gov, has a very robust section on scams, which is where a lot of my information comes from. And you can go online and do the searching yourself and search through all of their scams. And it's basically information that's gleaned from people reporting having been scammed. To report a scam, you just simply go to reportfraud.ftc.gov and you can do an online report of the scam.
Say that again, Mike. Say that again.
It's report fraud as one word, reportfraud.ftc.gov.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good.
And, yeah, and that, of course, the FTC site, if you just go to ftc.gov, you could find a report.
Teddy, I can make up a story at the end here. I don't have a whole lot, but I have a little more I want to ask Mike. And do you have a story?
Yeah, I got a quick story, but go ahead and wrap up with Mike.
Yeah. So I want to ask about identity theft. And I've had personal friends who have had their identity stolen. And I mean, they swear by, I've got a shredder, 10 shredders. I shred everything 10 ways from here to there. But identity theft, huge issue. You have any tips on that other than I have a shredder over here? So now I open all my junk mail because my name's on the inside of it and the address is on it. They found a way to make me open junk mail, but I have a nice shredder and I use it a lot. So tips on identity theft and how to how to avoid that.
Well, I think the shredder is a good idea. Although I don't know that a lot of scammers go do dumpster diving much these days because there's so many easier ways of getting your information. I mean, if you go online and you search for a particular product or service, you just do a Google search for some subject matter. All of a sudden, they know that you're looking for them. The ad starts to pop up on Facebook. You end up if you register on a site and give them your email, be prepared to get emails, not only from them but from scammers, because people have ways of getting your email. So I guess the best advice I can give you is don't sign up for that stuff. Don't give anybody your personal information, particularly via email. You mentioned the bank. My bank has a fraud protection division. They call me if there's a strange occurrence with my credit card.
Yep.
And the first thing they say is, if you don't think this is a legit call, hang up and call the bank. And they don't give me the number to call because they expect me to look on the back of my credit card and call that number. And if I call that number, then they'll say, yeah, we detected this transaction that look a little odd from your spending habits. Were these you? Or if you have a card that's a decline because it didn't read properly. I had it happen to me at a gas pump one day where I scanned my card and I pulled it out too soon and I canceled the transaction and I went back in, and while I was pumping gas, I got a call from the bank to verify that that was me using that card at that very moment. And because it had been, the card had been rejected the first try because it didn't stay in the machine long enough. And so you just have to be very leery. And I was,
Mhm.
the first time I got that fraud call from my bank, I was leery about it. I hung up and I called the number on the back of my card and ended up talking to the same guy I would have talked to
Right.
if I had continued the conversation. So you have to be careful about things like that. You just don't share. I mean, listen, I see people put their phone numbers on Facebook, not via Messenger. I'm talking about in a Facebook post. Well, if you're a business and you want the world to know your phone number, fine. But if you're an individual, don't put your phone number, because you give me a phone number, I can find you.
Mhm.
There's a website out there called whitepages.com.
Yep.
You can do a reverse number lookup. I can look up your phone number. I can find your name, your address, who your relatives are, where you've lived. And for $4.99 a month, I can delve into where you've lived in the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And then I can get a report when something changes. If you change your phone number, I get a report that you changed.
Yeah.
You know that I gotta share a quick joke, and I'll butcher it, I'm sure, but it's a husband and wife sitting at the kitchen table, and one of them says, I don't know, I got my identity stolen or something like that, and then they either died of boredom or there was nothing there. In other words, I live such a dull, boring life that there's nothing there of any value to steal. It was just kind of funny. Hey, Mike, we've only got a minute left for you to do this, but if a couple of quick takeaways you have here.
Just if it's too good to be, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah. Listen, getting rich takes a lot of hard work. Even earning a basic living takes a lot of hard work. So if it looks like it's too easy, it probably is a scam. There's no free lunch. Because even if somebody buys your lunch, chances are they're going to one day expect you to buy theirs or buy something from them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No free lunches. I'm with you.
Yep.
So.
Buyer beware. Feel too good to be true.
I mean, super cheap items. Watch out for stuff like I've seen a lot on Facebook these days of advertising tool bench from Harbor Freight for $79. It's an item they sell for about $400 in the store. And the story is, we were unable to ship this to the original purchaser. It's cheaper for me to sell it to you for $79 than it is to send it back. It's a scam.
Yeah.
That's how I bought my first living room set. And I am totally serious. A semi truck drove through our neighborhood and said that it said he couldn't drop off the furniture because the place he had to go had no credit. He had to unload it because he had to be 2 states over by sundown tonight. So I bought a couch and a chair and another recliner for like this amount of money, and I was engaged. Like my fiance at the time, luckily she liked it, but I'm thinking, boy, I got a good deal. But who knows where that stolen thing came from?
That's right.
Mike,
exactly.
That's a true story. That was our first living room suite or suite or whatever you call it. Mike Fenley, thank you, Mike.
Sure enough.
Good to see you again.
Good stuff. Good.
Senator Richard Burr, office field representative. We talked scams today. And so, Teddy, you got a quick story, and let's talk about what's next week.
I'm going to make this real easy. My quick story is this. Don't be afraid. And you don't need to be afraid if you're paying serious attention and if you're asking questions. You don't need to be afraid of scammers, but you have to pay serious attention and you have to ask serious questions. Otherwise, you're going to get taken on a regular basis. Hey, next week, our special guest is John Chapman. John Chapman works for UNCG Bryan School. He teaches a sales training class, and John's going to come on next week. The conversation is going to be about the journey of becoming a sales professional. We got lots of feedback from the last show. Being a sales professional is similar to being a job seeker or vice versa. So we said, what the heck, we'll bring John Chapman on and have this conversation. Thanks for everybody for showing up. Thank you very much for the Elder Law Firm for being a sponsor. We appreciate you. Mike, thanks a lot for being here.
Hey, Teddy, it's our 100th show coming up next week, 100th show, and I won't be here. How about that? but
No,
we'll have
I
a
get
special
you. I
co-host.
don't know where love's going,
But yeah, 100 shows, man. It's been a great ride, and we're still riding it. And we've got ourselves booked out for another 3 or 4 months. So things are looking good, my friend. Mike, again, thank you very much. Teddy,
Thank you.
you have a great week. Take
see
care,
everybody
everybody.
next week. Bye-bye.
See you next time.